cents per pound. Now let's go down to the cash flow statement. We start out with net income. Because it's the starting point for our cash flow statement, we have to really understand what is in that net income number, and that's why I laid all it out. What I've done in the cash flow statement is I have provided all of the data because I want to kind of talk through what's happening. So pause along the way. This spreadsheet is available to you, so you'll have it to look at. You can look at the formulas. One thing I want to note up front, because some of you I know might have hit upon this, is that the US dollar conversion of net income, there's a bug in your homework software. If you use this $3.54 translation, it's going to bounce back an error that you're incorrect. And the reason is your homework software is using an exchange rate that is not 2 decimal precision, meaning it's like 3.5393. And so you might end up with an error. What I want to do is tell you, just skip over that and just use $3.54 because that is the appropriate exchange rate to use to convert net income to US dollar. And you can see it's up above as well in the mini income statement that I did. You can also see it in your book that the average rate is used. So again, if you hit upon this, I just don't want you to be confused on that. Okay. Let's now look at what is happening, and we're going to focus first on the functional currency side. I just want to look at why we have these various line items on the cash flow statement. What we're doing is we're starting out with net income as a starting point, and we are going to be adding back non-cash expense or taking out non-cash revenue, okay? And a simpler way maybe to put that is we're removing from net income any non-cash activity. Okay, because income, we just looked at this up above, right? Net income does include a mixture of accrued and incurred items that may be non-cash, right? We learned about this, the very start of Principles 1. You earn revenue or you recognize revenue when it's earned. It doesn't matter if you get cash or not. If you don't get cash, then we have what's called an account receivable. Regardless, it's revenue, right? So that's what's happening up on the income statement, but down on the cash flow statement, we are concerned with cash, which is why, for instance, we're going to take any account receivable and we're going to remove it from net income, because what we want to say is, okay, this is actual cash that from it reflected, or I should say, this is actual income, right? The 17,200 pounds of accounts receivable, that was recognized as revenue, but it's not cash revenue, so we want to remove it in the cash flow statement. Okay, we're going to do the inverse with our depreciation and interest expense. Depreciation and interest expense, we have not yet, first of all, let me start with interest expense. We didn't yet pay the interest expense. We're going to pay it on January 1st because that's when it's due. So the interest expense in our income statement is really reflected as a payable, okay? And that payable is going to live on our balance sheet. But it is an expense on our income statement, but it's not a cash expense, which is why we're going to add it back. Okay, the $15,400 of interest expense on our income statement, that we didn't actually pay cash for yet. So we're going to add it back. Same thing with depreciation expense. Depreciation is not a cash expense. What this means is our cash flow from operating activities is going to be the $60,800 of net income. Net income is the summary of operations. So that's why we start out with it in this operating section. We're going to take out any non-cash items to get to cash flow from operating activities is actually $82,400. Next, we have investing. We're going to take $234,000. We're going to reflect that we took 234,000 pounds and we spent that on a building, right? And that's a little bit more intuitive because we know that we made that purchase. It's a cash outlay. We want to reflect it as investing activity. Same thing in financing. We've got a capital contribution. We received, new cash from a contribution. This is owner-related activity, 80,000 pounds. We also received cash from a lender. So we went out, we took out a note payable, and we got 154,000 pounds of cash through borrowing. And then we paid out a dividend. So this is 11,000 pounds of dividends. So this is cash flow from financing, right? So what I've done is we have subtotaled our operating activity, our investing activity, and our financing activity, and we subtotal down to a 71,400 pound total of increase in cash for this year, okay? That's simply to get us to functional currency. Now what we need to do is we need to convert everything to US dollar. Now what you'll notice is we're going to use the same exchange rate for the income statement to get to our US dollar amounts. And what we want to do, the key here is we want to translate line item by line item. So that's why having a clear column of these exchange rates is very important. We want to see exactly how we're getting to the US dollar amount. $3.54 was our exchange rate for the income statement because that's the average rate. But notice how we get down to the purchase of the building, we're using a different exchange rate. Now, why is that? $3.50. Okay, $3.50 is from January 1st. Why are we using the January 1st exchange rate? Well, because that's when we purchased the building. If you go up to your starting facts, you'll see that we purchased the building and that happened on January 1st. So this is where actively reading these facts and tying the financial activity to the date is really important on this topic of exchange rates. Same thing with the financing. The capital contribution, that occurred again on January 1st, as did the borrowing of the note. That occurred on January 1st. So we're going to use those actual date exchange rates. Dividends were paid on December 31st, and that's why we're going to use $3.58 because that's what the exchange rate was on the date that we paid the dividend. Each of these items we're going to translate on their own. We're going to subtotal accordingly. And we're going to come down to a US dollar equivalent of $252,316 increase in cash. So now let's focus on this translation adjustment. What we want to do is we want to recognize, first of all, that we have used a mixture of exchange rates to go from functional currency to US dollar, right? We've done it for net income items or the income statement items for the purchase of the building, capital contribution, etc. Got exchange rates from January 1st, December 31st. We got an average rate in there. And what we've tallied up to with kind of this whole column of US dollar activity is effectively an ending balance in cash, because we have to remember that we started out with nothing in cash, right? Because this company's new. So this $252,316 reflects an ending balance of cash based on our translations up here at the end, right? We also have an ending balance in cash on the functional currency side. And we're going to, again, we have to go back to our rules. The ending balance for purpose of the balance sheet is going to be converted at the December 31st rate. So we get to this $255,612 ending balance. Well, notice here, we've got two ending balances here, right? And that is kind of a bit of a conundrum because they don't equal, right? They're not the same. Well, they're not the same because of the fact that we have used various exchange rates throughout this process. And what we want to do is we want to account for the movement of the US dollar related movement related solely to exchange rates. Okay. So what we're going to do is this is sometimes referred to as a plug. It's also called kind of flushing out the exchange rate. We're going to take the ending balance according to our conversion at the year end date. Minus the ending balance based on our cash flow statement, and we come out with a $3,296 translation adjustment. So this is going to be activity that we capture in our financial statements, okay, that relates solely to exchange rate movement. Finally, just wrapping up here, this is a complicated problem. It's difficult, and it's difficult because we have to think through not just the cash flow statement, but also the income statement. We also have to kind of refer to balance sheet items. It's difficult also because you've got this movement of exchange rates, which is kind of the most direct application of what you're learning in Chapter 10. And finally, it's difficult because we have to kind of learn about this new concept of a translation adjustment and how to kind of back into the actual adjustment. And we do that by comparing the two ending balances that we arrive at through kind of two different methods. One using ending balance in cash converted at the December 31st rate. The other looking at the increase in cash based on, all of this activity that we're doing throughout the cash flow statement. So take your time with this. This video is long, so I appreciate you sticking through it and keep in touch with questions. Thank you.